You may. Dolan. Kamalevich. Moon. Baumstark. Nelson. Supos.
Thank you, Ava.
The next certificate of excellence goes to Zoe Prempa.
I'm in fifth grade, and there are some things I like to do. I like to play, and I also like to draw. There are apps that you can use to record voices, like an example. Hey guys, welcome back. This is a podcast that I made on the app that can be used to share to other people, or you can also make a book on here. Like if I said, hello, look at the book that I've made, and this is how you can use it. First, for example, if you need to mute you, all you press is dear, and you will mute you. Also, you can say like hello. This speech text button should be right here. And if that's not the right thing, you can also delete it and go back. This is running ally. This is what the app looks like. And when you're allowed to get as many books as you want. There are graphic novels, there are story tales, there are real stories. They're all types of Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to thank the people who have supported me through this way. I would like to thank my mom, my teachers, my brothers, and my dad, and especially her. And that is it.
And congratulations to Braden Sam for getting the Certificate of Excellence from Infinitec.
My name is Braden. I am 10 years old. I go to school at Glenview.
Braden, what's your favorite color?
Yellow.
Yellow, like your shirt. What's your favorite animal?
Cat.
What's your favorite snack?
Eat. Banana chips.
What do you like to play?
Play. iPad.
Do you like to watch on YouTube?
Or watch 5 Little Peppers.
That's a good song. Nice job.
We'd like to invite all of our award winners up to the table. Dr. Deli has a surprise for you. Right in here.
I'll send the picture too.
I didn't take a good but I have.
It's like Eric said he was going to talk about the budget.
Have fun.
Wait, I thought we talked about the order. Miss Osborne, Miss
Hopefully they'll do
Miss Osborne, Miss Jacob, Jacoa, Maya.
Where do you want me to sit, sir?
You sit next to Miss.
Okay. Maybe those are told.
We'll give our friends just a moment to depart, okay, and then I'll...
Wait till they get to go.
Okay, well, at this point, I am pleased to introduce the Student Voice Committee from ATIA, and I can tell you that I personally have been privileged enough to interact with this group of students who are big thinkers. They bring their best to school every day, and it's infectious across the building. I know that for a fact because I've seen it with my own two eyes, and we're here with their sponsors as well. So I'd like to just hand it over to you folks, and we're eager to hear from you.
Good evening, Glenview School District 34 board members, leaders, and community. My name is Jacob Weissman, along with Jacoa Liblink and Maya Undara.
We are here to present this year's project as we have done as members of the Student Voice Committee at ATIA.
The Student Voice Committee has worked together to create a program to connect students throughout different grades with a crew of 8th grade leaders to help do that.
Making our project's name thoroughly fit is the Cross-Grade Connections crew.
Our teacher sponsors of the Student Voice Committee will first share what the Student Voice Committee is.
Please welcome Ms. Bonsberg and Ms. Coker.
Thank you, Jacob, Jacoa, and Maya. And we want to begin by thanking some of the folks around this table who have spent some time with these wonderful students over the course of the year. Dr. Deli, as he mentioned, Dr. Silverman is one of our early champions, Ms. Kajijian, Ms. Dallenheim, and Ms. O'Donnell. So really appreciate the leadership uplifting these voices, and that's what we're all about. And you might recall us visiting a few years back in our original iteration as the Equity Ambassadors. Ms. Kajijian graciously invited us to share some of our work. At that time, our students had a kind of more journalistic inclination, so our primary focus was a publication called The Equity Editorial. The group has since evolved to our Student Voice Committee, but really the essence of that group, that the vision of kind of uplifting student voice and ensuring that all students feel a sense of belonging is still at its core. So I'll let Ms. Coco tell you a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so just to explain a little bit about what we've been doing, the Student Voice Committee is obviously intended on giving a voice to students, intended to be a place where students can work to share their input on how ATIA can become a more equitable, inclusive school community. Ms. Bonsberg and I believe that students should have a seat at this table and many tables and be able to share their wonderful ideas. So we've had lots of opportunities to do that over the past couple of years. As Ms. Bonsberg mentioned, several of you here have joined us in some of those conversations where the students have been able to talk about topics not limited to, but including dress code and homework and building a sense of belonging at ATIA and in the district. Lots of conversations on school climate and culture and safety, and really just things that they're passionate and interested in and making this building and the entire district a better place. Most recently, we've been joined by Kathy and Melanie to give input on the strategic plan, which you'll be hearing more about later tonight. So very relevant and important points of views. Ms. Bonsberg will share a little bit more about the future of the Student Voice Committee, but we want them to do most of the talking as is implicated in the name. So.
Yeah, just a quick sneak peek, inspired by the incredible work of these student leaders. Our student success coordinator at ATIA, Amy Frederick, had a vision for kind of really making sure that this leadership time is protected within their school day, because these are students who are extracurricularly engaged in a million different initiatives. So we're looking next year to build this kind of work and this kind of student mentorship, as they'll be spotlighting this evening, into the SEL curriculum, so having a leadership group of sorts within the school day, which is really exciting. So I'm going to pass it back to Jacob to give us a little bit more about the origins of a particular initiative of ours this year called the Cross-Grade Connections Crew.
We'd like to share the origins of the Cross-Grade Connections Crew. When the Student Voice Committee first met in August, we discussed what projects we wanted to work on this year, and many ideas were on the table. One idea I was having that the other members wanted to focus on was the Cross-Grade Connections Crew. The original draft and idea was to have a one-on-one with 6th grade to 8th graders. That, however, did not necessarily encourage a strong idea of leadership that we wanted to cast to support 6th grade students. We worked the next few months drafting emails, creating application forms, and reviewing potential candidates. After selecting our leaders, we started with training, where we previewed SEL lessons and brainstormed good ways to present. We also decided that every other week, an 8th grader who was accepted to join the program would join the 6th grade SEL classroom. That 8th grader had the opportunity to lead the lesson with the teacher, help the teacher lead the lesson, or add on to the teacher after they were talking. The amount of style which they contributed to the student was completely up to them. We have about 10 student volunteers as mentors.
Now I would like to talk about the goals of the Cross-Grade Connections Crew. So the primary goal of the Cross-Grade Connections Crew is to increase a sense of community at ATIA. We think that students' middle school experience will feel very full circle if 6th grade students can grow up to be 8th graders, but then have the opportunity to have a sort of leadership role for the next incoming group of 6th grade students. This means that 8th graders will have the opportunity to develop leadership skills. We realized that it's also important to have connections larger than just your grade level, and we think that community will increase in that way.
These are the slides we used in our first lesson to introduce ourselves to the students. I went a little overboard in my my interests, but my goal was to make them feel welcome and comfortable. I wanted them to be able to relate to something they saw on my slides so that they felt like they could trust me or connect with my interests.
Another important part of that was so they could realize, oh, we're not just random 8th grade leaders, we're people who have similar interests and are able to connect with them. SEL lessons are something important. There's no doubt about that. However, they must stay engaging and even interactive. Throughout the lessons, I've taken the SEL lessons from the Second Step platform and changed how students respond. For example, one thing tested was a teaching strategy called stand up, hand up, pair up. You might have heard of it before. How this works is on the screen there would be a question from the lesson, that Second Step lesson, and the students would raise their hands and randomly walk around the room until I told them to stop. When they stopped, they would high-five the nearest student to them and discuss the question. This would effectively have students discussing with students they otherwise maybe would not have. Additionally, I've also tried other platforms like a website allowing students to anonymously share their answers, which are presented to the class on the screen, so they don't face any possible social anxiety or no one else is doing it, so why should I? Other things I've tested include quiz-style games to review materials covered in Second Step. They have been well received among the 6th grade students. 6th grader George Gooston said, quote, "I believe they are really fun," unquote. These interactive SEL lessons keep students engaged. Additionally, as a way to incentivize the students to participate in the lessons, I'll have my group play a game after each lesson in the time we have left. This type of game is something that does not involve iPads or academics, but more centered towards a brain break with team building. Examples include games like Four Corners, Night at the Museums, or recently my group has asked for more elaborate games.
The way I supported my 6th grade students was by connecting with them on a personal level before class started. We would have soft starts. I would ask them how they spent their weekend, or what they are doing after school or looking forward to that day, or about their upcoming plans for summer. In the middle of the lesson, I would try to connect with them by giving them personal commentary on the lesson. There's a component of Second Step lessons called Real Voices, where students give their examples or share their stories. When I joined my group, I would share my experiences to them to make them relatable to life at ATIA. Near the end of the questions, I would give my students time to ask questions about life in 7th or 8th grade, which helped them feel more welcome or make them feel more comfortable at school. I found that on the days I didn't join my group, they sought me out in the hallway to say hi and were really open with me. They missed me on the days I wasn't there and were really excited to see me on CCC. It's because I brought them candy.
Relationship building with my 6th grade students has been a fundamental process for me. It helped me expand my leadership skills when they were able to hear input on SEL lessons based on my personal experience. In addition, it helped 6th graders have someone to look up to or a role model. It gives them an 8th grade to say hi to in the halls, or if they're ever having trouble with a friend or issue they might want advice on, I'm always there to help them resolve it most appropriately as an 8th grade student with experience. It's also cool for them to know an 8th grader to say hi to. Of course, it's also important to remind them that if things are getting too out of hand with the teacher as well, but this can be difficult for some people to ask a teacher for help. This is another thing that 8th grade leaders are there to do. One specific highlight and memorable experience from cross-grade connections I have was when one of my students was having trouble with one of his friends. I saw him in the hallway and he asked if he could call me after school. We talked on the phone for about 30 minutes and I gave him some advice on what to do with the friend. The next day after school, I got a text from him thanking me for my help, which gave me a sense of gratitude.
Okay, so I think that's the end of the slideshow. So we would like to open up the floor to any questions that this board might have for us.
Anybody want to go?
How many people overall are involved in the connection? There's the 3 of you, but like how big is the scope of people that participate?
14. I think just a rough estimate is probably about 14 students. Yeah.
Have you all had an opportunity to share any of the learnings or experience with other students at Springman to see if it might be interesting?
No, we haven't communicated with Springman, but that would be a good idea.
I'll do that.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any questions? Do you guys see building on this in high school?
Possibly.
I think that our idea was kind of modeled after high school because I think we heard some rumors that high school had more interconnected relationships among the grades, so we thought that ATIA could benefit from that.
Have you recruited any 7th graders for next year?
No, not yet, but we did start a Google form to get 7th graders thinking about what clubs they would be interested in next year, because a lot of clubs right now have a lot of 8th graders, so to keep them afloat, we need new people. Yeah.
Additionally, for the leadership SCL Ms. Sponsberg was referring to earlier, we did have, I believe we had teachers nominate a student from each SCL class to generally get some idea of good leaders that we can have for next year.
And how are the 6th graders? Are they looking forward to becoming 8th graders now?
Yeah, they are. My 6th grade class, they're like, they're really nice, but they're like really looking forward to being a 7th and 8th grader, especially since they have connections, and I introduced them to all the teachers in 7th and 8th graders. So yeah.
That's great, thanks.
Well done. Thank you very much.
We'd like to thank you for your attention this evening.
Any questions, please feel free to direct to Ms. Sponsberg or Ms. Coker's emails, or feel free to reach out to any of us as well, even though I do believe our emails will be unfortunately deactivated in the coming days.
Yeah.
or not,
We would like to say thank you so much for listening to our presentation. We hope that you see a lot of potential in the Cross-Grade Connections crew as it continues to grow and expand to even other schools in the district. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks. Can you guys get a photo really quick?
Nice job. Thank you for your work.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
We'll see you at graduation.
Great job.
That concludes my section for this evening. Thank you.
Thanks. All right, next that brings us to our audience comments section. Anyone wishing to address the board can submit a comment card available at the check-in table and give it to Executive Director of Communications and Strategic Planning. The Executive Director will call community members who submit cards forward. They will be asked to introduce themselves and describe their relationship with the district. Please keep your comments at 3 minutes. And an appropriate response will be given in a timely manner. We ask that you submit one comment. Kathy, do we have any comments?
We do.
All right.
John Bassler.
Thank you. Over here?
Yeah, you can So thank you for giving me this opportunity. So my name is John Bassler. I live in the community. I have 3 children that attend District 34 schools. I'm a teacher myself. I teach math at Prospect High School. And it was pretty impressive listening to all the accomplishments these students have and keeping up with the theme of recognition, equity, inclusiveness, and connectedness. What I'm here to talk about today is possibly bringing in a new sport to District 34 schools. We're here to talk about, here with the head coach from Glenview South High School, we're here to talk about wrestling. So I used to be the head coach at Rolling Meadows High School, and I currently coach the girls program at Prospect High School. So wrestling has been a big part of my life, and my son is part of the Junior Titans program right now. So wrestling is a co-ed sport. In fact, girls wrestling is one of the fastest growing IHSA sports and IKWF sports. Wrestling is a non-cut sport, and so this would prepare students for success in winter sports and eventually at GBS. And currently, Springman and ATIA only offer basketball in the wintertime. So this would be a way for non-basketball players to connect to the school. And the IESA starts wrestling in 5th grade. So this will give a head start for students to start building that connection with ATIA and Springman. So talking about some of the benefits of wrestling. Wrestling is known for instilling discipline and building character. Athletes learn the importance of hard work, dedication, and perseverance, grittiness, things that we talk about in our classroom all the time. The sport teaches valuable life lessons such as goal setting, time management, and the ability to overcome challenges. These attributes contribute to the holistic development of students, preparing them for success in academics and beyond. It's a great sport for students that have too much energy or sometimes find a way to get in trouble. And I was one of these students. I wrestled in Gemini, and that was a way for me to find some success in school and kind of turn things around in my life. In education, we often talk about equity, inclusivity, teamwork, connectedness, and wrestling promotes this by offering an opportunity for students of various body types, skill levels to participate. It celebrates diversity and encourages teamwork as athletes train and compete together as part of a team. The sense of camaraderie developed in wrestling can foster a positive and supportive school culture. Again, this is a sport that's for all students, but in my experience as a coach and as a participant, it really helps out those students who are most at risk, who have trouble finding connection to the school. Research has shown positive correlation between participation in sports and academic success, and again, especially for those students that may not feel connected to the building. Currently, Maple has a co-op at District 34, but the start time is 4:15 and it ends at 6:30. Students that don't attend Maple must find a ride there and a ride home, which puts some of our families at a disadvantage and is not quite equitable for our low-income families. There are currently 85 junior Titan wrestlers, and it's a program that I help coach with Coach Costello there, and 80 of them will be attending District 34 schools. This program, as I mentioned, is fast growing. We started with about 40 to 50 students, wrestlers about 3 or 4 years ago, and now we're up to 85. And those students could do both the middle school program and the Junior Titans program. Wrestling is a very low-cost sport. There's only an upfront cost of buying mats, and the GBS program said they would try to help any way possible. And you usually only need about 2 coaches for a season, and anybody who just is good with kids can figure it out and be a positive role model for them. And currently, there's about 150 middle schools that have wrestling in the area. Gemini has had a program for over 30 years. Emerson, Lincoln, and Niles also have programs, and Wilmette Junior High has a program. So there'll be plenty of opportunities for them. So I think that's probably the time for 3 minutes. But thank you again. Thank you so much for your time. And I'm willing to answer any questions if that allows, or in some kind of follow-up. Thank you.
Thanks for your comment. Kathy, do we have any other comments? Next, we'll move to consideration of resolutions on our consent agenda. We have the 24031 personnel report, the 24032 payroll warrants, the 24033 vendor warrants, the 24034 board meeting calendar for next year, and the 24035 press issue 114. Can I have a motion and a second for approval?
Hey, Scott, can I ask
Yes,
one
please.
clarifying question to the board meeting date?
Yes.
on the calendar, there's the TBD date that is listed before the regular meeting date. That is not to imply that it's necessarily before the September 16th meeting date, or is it's in September?
Right, we were looking at the availability of the IASB to support us either the one before or the one after the 16th.
So it's TBD if it's between the August and September meeting or between the September and October meeting.
Correct.
Understood. Okay.
Is that helpful?
Yep. Just wanted
Is there a meeting date that's better for you right now?
No, I just wanted to make sure that there's meeting dates that don't work for me. So.
Okay. Yes, can I get a motion and a second for approval?
So moved. Baumstark.
Second, Dolan.
Gabby, may I have a roll call vote?
Aye.
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 I think you got it right.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next, we'll move to consideration of other resolutions. We have the 24036 $11 million interfund transfer. Eric?
Thank you. And so we discussed this last month, and we've discussed it in the past. This is the second of 3 transfers that will allow us to fund the remaining construction work. This one is coming from the O&M fund, going directly to capital projects in the amount of $11 million.
So moved, Dolan.
Second, Julie. Moon.
All right, Gabby, can I have a roll call?
Aye.
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 Motion carries. Next, we have the 24037 final site agreement and amendment. Kathy?
This is a renewal of our website contract. We've been happy with Final Site, and our website is beautiful and wonderful and easy to manage on the back end, so we're happy to ask you to continue our relationship with Final Site.
And it's a 5-year, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the cost levels there are basically what we've been paying, like there's no big change?
Actually, a little lower.
A little lower,
Yeah.
Mm.
Bonus.
Mhm.
Any other questions? Could I have a motion and a second to approve the agreement and amendment as presented?
So moved. Baumstark.
Second, Dolan.
Gabby, may I have a roll call?
Aye.
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 Motion carries. We're moving along to our discussion section. We're talking about a $5 million from working cash to capital projects.
Isn't there another
Oh, wait.
item?
Yes, there is. ALAP agreement.
Yeah, this is also a renewal of a program we started this year, if you recall, the Alternative Learning Opportunities Program through North Cook that provides each middle school with 2 what we call student advocates that can carry a caseload of about 25 to 30 students and really just support them in the area of case management, mentorship. It's been very, very successful. We often find the student advocates attending sporting events with the students, scheduling doctor or dentist appointments, doing home visits as necessary, and so it's just another additional support through our multi-tiered system of supports for students that may present some at-risk factors. So we would be moving into year 2 with this.
And I noticed that it's still favorable financially, right?
The first year was where we really had to share costs with North Cook, and then moving into the second year, the costs are reduced significantly, yes.
Any questions about the ALAP program?
I guess only one. What's driving the difference in cost between year 1 and subsequent years?
That was the agreement, the cost structure that the Regional Office of Education set up, that the first year we had to pay for half of the salary and benefits, and then after the first year, the costs were reduced significantly. That was in the original cost formula.
Thanks for clarifying.
Yeah.
Can I get a motion and a second to approve the ALAP?
So moved, Kemalevich.
Second, Moon.
Gabby, can I have a roll call?
Aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Now we'll move along to discussion. We'll start with number one, the 2024-2027 strategic plan.
So just by way of a brief introduction, as you know, we are coming up on the end of the strategic plan that we've had now for several years, which was a big undertaking at the time. And I don't know, in some ways it doesn't seem like it was all that long ago, and other times it does. Glenview, I think, is unique, which should come as no surprise to anyone when it comes to big, impactful undertakings like a strategic plan. We are not a district, like some districts, that have their boards of education develop a strategic plan and have the administration implement it, or vice versa, a district that has administrative teams develop the strategic plan. We truly are a grassroots approach to the strategic planning that we do here, which I think, and you're going to see, I believe, the fruits of all of that work, and how there were so many stakeholders that were involved in the creation of this plan. And a special thank you to Kathy and Melanie and Dr. Dolan, and I shouldn't even start mentioning people because I'm going to get into a pinch. But why don't I hand it over to you, Kathy?
Okay.
You can help me introduce others who are in the room and may have been served on the team as well. So thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Dr. Deli. And we are your strategic plan facilitation team. We are the key listeners and synthesizers of a lot of information that we heard over the last several months, since October of last year. So what you'll hear tonight is about the task force that kind of guided the work of the strategic plan, the process that we went through over this school year, the plan itself, and what happens after you all approve the plan at the next meeting. The task force was an incredibly representative group, and it came from every building, every area of our community, included certified and support staff, administration. Dr. Dolan was our board member rep. We had parents and family, and many who served in multiple roles in our community. So tonight we had Claire Bonsberg speak. She was a key member of our team. I think I saw Nanette Ross Meredith was on the team. Dr. Dolan was our board member rep. Dr. Silverman served as an administration rep. And I think that's everyone who is, Mildred Cortez, who was awarded tonight, was a primary preschool representative. Natalie was here, she was on the team. And Sylvia Gorski-Duarte. So many people who came tonight were part of that team. And the process.
This process began in September with gathering information from different important groups who need to weigh in on a plan like this. So some surveys went out to staff, family, and the community. Then we sent a follow-up survey in October. The first time the task force got together was in December, and that meeting was really to sort of learn from all of that feedback, understand where we are as a district. We looked at academic data, we looked at SEL data, and then we used all of that information to draft some goals. So that's what happened in December. In January, Cabinet reviewed those goals, and we spent some time in February, March gathering more feedback from the community in in-person sessions where we had staff members, community members, and family members join us. Then we got back together as a task force and looked at all of that feedback to help us plan what strategies we might include in the strategic plan. Kathy and Melanie spent some time with students doing a survey and focus groups. And then in the last month or more, Cabinet has been reviewing the strategies drafted by the task force to narrow those in, and also developing objectives. A little bit later, I'm going to go through what each of these words means to us in this strategic plan, but that's really sort of the place where we're measuring the impact of our strategies and goals. The last thing we did, was it, I don't know, a week or two ago, 2 weeks ago, was bring all of that back to our task force to kind of review it, provide some final feedback, and then here we are today presenting the plan to you all. A little bit more about what we learned from the community and surveys. You can see here are from the initial survey that we gave, really big themes that stood out in terms of areas that we might be able to have an impact with this plan. So staff mentioned morale, behavior, and our equity, diversity, and inclusivity work. Families mentioned an academic focus, preventing bullying, and more family involvement. And the community connected with inclusivity, programs and learning, and fiscal discipline. You can see, in addition to those themes, some priorities emerged. I won't read all of those to you, but one thing to notice is this idea of safety for students and employees came up as a high priority in all three groups. And so then a secondary survey was given where we learned that really when people are talking about safety, they mean the idea of students' behaviors, consequences, and boundaries. Also ideas about physically secure buildings, gun control, and mental health arose from that survey.
So we took that survey data and, as Allison mentioned, demographic data, academic achievement data, and panorama data, so much more, and came together for our task force meeting in December. And I remember our meetings like this for our first strategic plan, where we would present data about, what is District 34, and watching those aha moments when task force members would realize kind of the truth about District 34. And those were really telling. You'd see those aha moments. I have the slide up when we talk about the 59 languages spoken in the homes of our families. And people don't necessarily realize the diversity, what the diversity of our district actually is. And you see those aha moments, but also the pride that comes out of it, that the task force was happy to be in the room talking about it and learning about it and being a part of this community. So that first meeting was around goals and developing the goals. And one thing that we wanted in this plan to be different than the previous plan was to be a little more streamlined and more actionable, which we felt meant fewer goals that are more targeted. So in the marching orders for the group was, we are going to be talking about a lot and getting your feedback, but we're going to synthesize this down into 3 goals. And with that information, we did that as a team with some cabinet input, and then we brought that to the community.
So we hosted 6 community feedback sessions. At these feedback sessions, we gave a shortened presentation from what we had done with the task force. They had an opportunity to do a SWOT analysis after learning all of that information, and then they got to provide their feedback on what strategies they think aligned with the goals that the task force came up with. We had great representation, 37 family members, 26 staff members, and 9 community members. 2 of our community feedback sessions were our BPAC groups, our Spanish and Mongolian BPACs, and our highest turnout was our Mongolian BPAC, thanks to a special speaker, Dr. Matt Silverman, talking about the math program.
Thanks, Rich. We got some people in the room.
But it was really great to be in the room and hear and see groups of people who might not have interacted before talking about what our district means to them and what they want to see come from the future.
And after those feedback sessions, you see all these big pieces of note paper. We had all of these at one point laid out everywhere, and we were making sense of it. So we came back with all of that feedback to the task force, to a meeting in March to discuss the strategies. Okay, task force, you've developed the goals, and we have some affirmation from the community and from cabinet and leadership that, yes, those are the goals we want to search for, we want to aim for. Now, how are we going to get there? So developing those strategies. And that session was, we broke into groups by goal, and people dug deep into how are we going to reach those goals and came up with those strategies. And then after we started processing those strategies, but before we finalized anything, Melanie and I went to Springman and ATIA, and you heard from some of the Student Voice Committee members at ATIA who really opened up to us about one of the goals. I'm giving it away. One of the goals is belonging and well-being. And they talked a lot about how they thought we could get to a culture of belonging and well-being in this district. And the things that they shared with us, you will see in this plan, the things that they think we can be doing, including what they presented on tonight, and talking about interdisciplinary work in classrooms and what their teachers meant to them. So that group was fantastic. And also at Springman, it was
We had the 8th grade student ambassadors at Springman, and they had the opportunity to give their feedback on the different goals, just like the Student Voice Committee. It was a little bit more of a presentation at Springman, and so they got to go through the different goals and come up with different ideas of what strategies could be part of our strategic plan.
And then, before we get to the plan,
I keep calling the strategic plan glossary. We realized early on that you can look at strategic plans and different organizations mean slightly different things when they say these words. And so we thought it was useful today, and as we communicate with the task force, to really have a shared understanding of what we mean. So in a moment, we will go through the different elements of our strategic plan. Before we do, so you understand what we mean when we say these things. The mission describes who we are and why we exist. The vision is a desired future state showing how success will look and feel. Our values reflect what we stand for and are committed to. They are beliefs and behaviors we find non-negotiable. Something new that we added this time, and we'll talk a little bit more about it when you see the specifics, is the idea of lenses. These serve for us as a perspective or framework through which we view and assess all goals, strategies, and objectives. Goals are statements of being. Reaching goals allows us to achieve our mission and vision. Our goals are maybe much more general than, we had people asking, shouldn't goals be SMART? And if you put your eyes down, you'll see our objectives are the SMART part. But our goals are general statements of being. The strategies are the pathways that help us reach that goal. They describe how to also reach the objectives. So they're sort of like a bridge between the goals and the objectives. Objectives are SMART, which means they're specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-based. They describe the outcome we're striving for and how it is measured. You'll also see specific measures listed in the plan that are like the exact tool that we'll use to help us know if we're achieving an objective. And then tactics aren't in the plan that you'll see today. That is sort of the work after the plan is approved, but those are the specific sort of to-dos and action items that will help us achieve the objectives and the strategies and thus the goals. How do we do with the glossary?
The Strategic Plan Dictionary. Our mission has not changed since the previous plan. That previous plan was really transformational to this district, and it really resonated with this community. And in some ways, we're not done with it yet because we had some COVID in there. So we want to maintain that mission to aspire, explore, discover, connect.
It's a good way to connect to the past plan.
Yes.
Similarly, our vision didn't change much. So that statement that you see at the top is identical, but we did do a little work in making the all learners well, all educators well, and all families in the community well. Those things are a little bit more concise and clear, we hope. It didn't change the meaning much, but hopefully a little bit easier to understand.
And that change was affirmed by the task force, that they felt that this did a better job of sharing what our vision was for each of our stakeholder groups.
And our values did not change. We are still committed to growth and aspirations, diversity, inclusion and equity, relationships and respect, and stewardship.
You'll remember that I said lenses are something new that we added this time around. In part, that's because last time we had 4 goals, one about students, one about educators, one about community and families, and one about resources. And so we thought really it makes more sense as we're streamlining, we have 3 goals that all of those groups are included in each of the goal areas. So you'll see that shift. And that then meant that we have to have a lens for student success, for equity, and for financial sustainability on each of those goals that then applies to the strategies, the objectives, and so on.
And now we have the 2024-2027 strategic plan. You can see that we have our lenses and how each goal connects with all of the groups. And our 3 goal areas are belonging and well-being, creativity and innovation, collaboration and community. And the strategies below them. And again, the task force, their purview, we're developing goals and strategies. And the rest of the work is for administration, and when we get into tactics and doing the work, that will be leadership teams, staff teams. That's the work of the district. So you can see under belonging and well-being, we have strategies such as increasing mental health awareness, literacy, and supports. So that kind of goes back to, what we heard from our surveys and from our task force about mental health being an important part of safety. And the objectives that Cabinet will be working toward, that students will experience an increase in feelings of safety and belonging. Families will report an increase in sense of belonging as a member of the community. And District 34 will increase the number of candidates, teachers hired, and total staff members from underrepresented demographics, because something that we heard about belonging is that staff feel that they are represented, that students see teachers in front of them that look like them. And we'll go into more detail of some of these here. Belonging and well-being, I just talked about those objectives. And you can see that we share the measures that we will be using to make sure that we are reaching those objectives and rolling up to the goal. Again, the tactics and the timelines, that's going to be work of the administration, and we'll have ways to track that for accountability and to share that publicly so that the community can see the progress to our plan.
Our creativity and innovation goal really talks about teaching and learning in the district and the kinds of experiences that we're providing for learners. It's also where you'll see some of those achievement measures that are should probably always be in a strategic plan. But we also added some measures and objectives that relate to engagement, that relate to our professional learning systems, and students' like dispositions, like who they are, not just what they know, but how we're developing like traits and characteristics that will help them succeed now and in the future.
Okay, and our third goal is collaboration and community. And this touches not just on the external community, it's the communities within our buildings, it's the communities within our district. So each school is a community, but then each grade is also a community. So coming up with ways for our communities to be able to collaborate and interact with each other. Developing partnerships and number of transition activities between elementary and intermediate and middle, and then on to 225, which is another community group that we would be working with. This really looks at developing strong teams and partnerships that, like it says underneath our goal, that will enhance educational experiences and support growth and success.
And so what comes next is the work of the administration, setting the annual priorities and timelines and establishing the tactics. And again, making sure that we share those out so that we're accountable. And developing the schedule for reporting progress to the plan here at the board level. We'll have a place on the website where the strategic plan has its own kind of dashboard or tracking. We'll be aligning meeting agendas with the goals and objectives of the strategic plan, and we will continue to aspire, explore, discover, connect.
That's great. Thank you. Does anyone have any comments or questions?
I do. First, it's wonderful to be a part of the process. Really kudos to you and everybody else who contributed, and thank you. It was really a robust effort with a lot of different inputs and a very open mindset by a lot of individuals to get to what we have today. And I think it's going to be clearer as we become more comfortable with what's included in it, and also it enables, I think, accountability and measurement of like kind of what's working, what's not working in a very connected way, right? So looking at you down there, as we construct what some dashboards are and how we can play with the data, there's a lot of really cool things that we can bring back into how does it hit this goal, this objective, and looking at, we have so much data now that we can say is consistent post-COVID, that we can start to do trend-based analysis and say where are we going and how do we do better. And I think it's set up by the foundation of the plan, it's set up by some of the clarity that we've come with, and it gives us a great opportunity going forward. So I just wanted to say thank you to everybody who participated. I think it's a very exciting place to be with how we refreshed it and moved it forward, as opposed to throughout what was very successful to say we had to do something new. It's great to have a version 2 on it.
Thanks, James. I really appreciate that it's a one-page document that I could link back to really easily with all the work I'm trying to do. And I'm looking forward to seeing the KPI dashboard that you're talking about developing.
I was also going to comment on just, it was like surprisingly elegantly, not surprisingly, I shouldn't say that. It's like, no, strategic plans can be complicated and they can feel like an octopus. This doesn't feel that way. Like this feels very targeted and focused. I appreciate that there's only 3 goals. I know that's the hardest part probably, was picking the 3 things you wanted to have on here. And I thought the lenses was also a great idea, because sometimes when there's a lot of, especially in room and you're debating, and it's helpful to say, okay, let's just remind ourselves, what lens are we thinking about and discussing at this point? And I think it'll just clarify a lot of conversations, and so that was a great idea. And I thought the measures were all very thoughtful too. And even the objectives, there's simplicity there, right? If I think back 2 strategic plans, I think we had 12 objectives, and I could never follow it. It was so complicated, and I don't feel that way about this one. So if that was one of your objectives, is that simplicity, but maintain being robust, I feel like it was very successful in that regard. And
one of the reasons we wanted it so simple and the language simple is our focus on our multilingual community, and we want everyone to be able to understand and relate to this plan. And again, our Mongolian feedback session was our biggest session, which is very telling. So the simpler the language, the simpler the plan structure, the easier it is to translate for all of our community members.
Any other comments?
I just want to add my voice to the KPI dashboard.
Oh, yeah.
Looking forward to that.
And we appreciate the financial
Kathy has 20
sustainability
days
lens.
to
You have
put
fun with
together.
that.
Yeah. There's plenty of objectives that we can get numbers on, so. And these are, and I want to remind people, goals don't necessarily have to be achieved within this window. This is where we're aiming, as long as we're going in the right direction.
Good point. Thank you. Well done.
All right. Next, we will move to number 2, $5 million from working cash to capital projects.
Thank you. So this dates back to July of '22 when the board issued the last remaining debt under the DSEB capacity. We were able to have some flexibility with those dollars because they were working cash bond proceeds, so we lent them to the bond and interest fund when the county was late. Now those that loan has been repaid. The county's back on schedule. Those funds are sitting in working cash, and we're asking the board to consider transferring $5 million that's sitting in working cash over to capital projects to continue funding the remaining construction work.
Any questions? We're just moving it back, right?
Yes.
Pretty much, yeah. All right, number 3, we have the fiscal year 2025 budget and call for public hearing. I think that's you again, isn't it, Eric?
It's me again. Okay. So first and foremost, big thanks to everyone who helped put this budget together. All department heads and buildings all had their input into compiling the information we're going to present tonight. As CFAC has been reporting for the last couple of years, projections continue to point toward deficit spending in the next few years, along with a dip into fund balance to help finish off the construction project. The district once again had to take a look at creating efficiencies where we were able to. Baked into this budget are the staffing plans that the board has previously discussed and approved, along with other measures to gain efficiencies. What you'll see here is our revenues compared to our expenses for all 9 funds. As always, most of our dollars come in and out of the general fund or the education fund. And this is going to be probably the second to last year where you'll see capital improvements, capital projects fund have that spike where we're continuing to spend down what we've been setting aside for construction. So this is $20 million in this FY25 budget, and what you'll see in the years to come is smaller amounts and just for minor roof work that'll be done at a couple different buildings. What we do have is across all funds $103 million in revenues and expenses $120.8, and so we're showing $17.7 million deficit across all funds. Again, that's for construction, but within the operating funds, with this tentative version, we see a $2.1 million operating surplus. Here, we always like to show our revenues and expenses and what makes up the majority of each. And so when it comes to revenues, you'll see that 89% is local sources, mainly comprised of local property taxes. And on the expense side, 76% that go towards salary and benefits, which is typical for our district and others in the area. So without going through all these, we've listed out the local revenue assumptions, a lot of the same assumptions that have been contemplated in the past. I will say on this slide, CPPRT and the interest are both anticipated to go up for the final version of this budget. Here, looking at state and federal revenue assumptions, for the most part, these always remain flat, which goes against the increase in total revenues that we like to see to help keep up with increasing expenses. And then on the expense side, again, staffing levels that have been discussed, previously, salary increases as stipulated in union contracts, and tentative benefit increases that will get updated for the final budget. That's always something that the Compensation Committee contemplates over the next couple months as more information comes in about our benefits experience. So again, looking at all the funds, we're showing a $17.7 million deficit, again, spending down the funds that have been issued for debt in the past. And just looking at our operating funds, we're showing a $2.1 million operating surplus. We've got a transfer, the $11 million transfer, not to be confused with what was discussed tonight. In FY25, we'll have one more proposal for an $11 million transfer. So we just backed that out to show you the 2.1 surplus. Some of the refinements I mentioned, interest income is set to increase, same with CPPRT. Health and dental rates will likely have some fluctuation going into the final budget. Maintenance and construction, there's always the opportunity for any updates as we go into the final, along with local and federal revenues. A new component that we've built into this version of the budget now includes a multi-year curriculum material estimate and expenses. This has to do with a number of different subject matter areas and over the course of the next couple of years. But what we'd like to do is, aside from the actual spending, because that's going to be dictated a little bit by math cycle and the district cycle here, but these are what we anticipate right now. What we've baked into this tentative version of the budget for FY25 is a $700,000 set aside that will be used when appropriate and when the curriculum materials are selected. So what we're trying to do is save up over the course of a couple of years so that we don't have huge amounts that we have to come up with in a year when maybe there are challenges on the horizon. Budget highlights, again, we believe these resources are aligned to hit our strategic goals for the year, as you just heard about. This year, our revenues are exceeding our operating expenditures. We've got $700,000 that's earmarked for future curriculum materials, $20 million in estimated construction costs, and a $3 million annual maintenance allocation that this would be the first year that actually we budget for and anticipate spending. More to come on that. And then just some of the requirements to adopting a budget. We've got to put the tentative budget on display, hold a formal hearing, and do that all, get all the paperwork into the county and the state by the end of September. So next steps in June, we'll hear about any refinements if we have them at that point, sort of begin to approve the publication and move our way into August for a presentation of the final budget. In September, we'll hold the hearing.
Any questions?
I had on the 24 actuals versus approved on the revenue side, we're roughly 6 million short. Is that because we still have a few months to go, or how are we tracking?
You said on the revenue side?
Yeah, on the revenue side, all funds.
So we're tracking as if we're going to end the year. We budgeted a $2.3 million operating surplus.
Yeah.
And we're trending about 3.3 to the good. So you could assume at this point, we're going to look at a $5.5 million surplus. Revenue specifically, I'd have to dive in, but there's still time, and then.
But do you think we'll come close to that?
We should.
101 revenue number?
We should. The only debate now is some of the property tax dollars, if they're going to still make their way over.
Okay.
But yes, for the most part. And then, we're always behind on the expense side because we cut 5 checks for the summer in June. So
yep.
Our expenses always trail. But yes.
Yeah, that I get. I also noticed something interesting, perhaps only to me, in the memo. I
Collection
remember
rate?
this from, what?
Collection rate?
Yeah.
I know what that is. Do you?
Well, I know what the collection rate is. I noticed we had always used 100 as the estimate, but it had always been 98.8, but now it's 100 for the 22 actual. So A, what happened, and B, do we believe 100?
New law.
New law. And
Okay.
And so any dollars that we aren't able to capture, the county goes back into the future levy and does a recapture line item, attempting to get the district any dollars that we weren't able to collect. So we now assume 100% every time.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Thank you for indulging my...
It's important for certain districts that they can't capture it ever.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. Thanks, Eric.
Thank you.
I saw that, that yelled out at me too, because we've never had a capture rate of 100% the last 2 years.
Well, and given that we were, are we still having trouble with timeliness?
No, that's back on track. Yes.
Given that we were.
For now. For
Well, it's an
now.
election year next year, so. Let's see how the elections go. Any other questions on the budget? Like, we're going to see this 3 more times, right?
Yes.
Okay. Next, we will.
Nice for it to feel somewhat routine. Like, usually
Okay.
there's all these weird TIF expirations and other stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of that noise has been cleared out.
Well, it makes the projections that much more accurate.
Yeah.
Especially, I did like seeing that we asked you guys to find $2 million and it showed up there.
We did. It did.
All right, next, we'll move along to the True North withdrawal intentions.
Thank you. So what I'm going to try to do here is a little reminder and a little forecasting all at once. Disregard the slide and just bear with me for a second here. But you may recall back at our February meeting, we once again shared publicly information about our current and past relationship with True North from its origin up until that point in time, as well as our intention to end the longstanding relationship that we've had with the cooperative for literally decades. I emphasized at that time, and I will again, that District 34 remains steadfast in our commitment to serve children in our district, our children in our district, in their home schools to the greatest extent possible. There are always exceptions to that. Every child is unique. Every child has unique needs. Our commitment is to not have students placed in True North programming, and we'll share in a minute a slide that depicts that as well. As a result, our reliance on the cooperative has declined over the past several years. We can proudly say that we no longer have our children placed in True North programs. It's something that we should be proud of. Our ability to do this stems from the board and the leadership team's vision to do this. This did not happen by accident. We were very deliberate as a group in our commitment to serving children at home. We also need to acknowledge our staff and our families in this journey, because it's not something that's done alone. We've assembled a staff of high quality, dedicated individuals, many of whom you've seen tonight, you've seen throughout the year presenting. Families you saw here this evening, committed to partnering with the school district and trusting us to do the right thing. So, the slides now, Kathy, thank you. Just go back to so this basically, we talked in February about direct and indirect charges and how this has migrated over time. So if you go back to the 2016-17 school year, you can see what we were paying, the grand total, to True North for both direct and indirect charges. You saw how that spiked up in 17-18. So you saw $3 to $4 million expenses for several years. But then you see what started to happen as we began to serve these children at home. So our costs naturally are going to go down. What remains essentially is a membership fee that covers administrative costs associated with being a member. So not student tuition, not direct service. We use a very small amount, right, of PD, related services, but we have reached a point where for what we're spending, we're getting nothing in return. And we talked about that. Exiting the cooperative is an onerous process. And I believe that both for programmatic and financial benefit purposes, we need to pursue withdrawing, independent of the onerous nature of it, because they make us go through a lot of steps in the process. This slide is from February, where I said we'd begin the withdrawal process and would take the initial actions in doing so. Our next steps specifically include the following, and I just wanted to put this out here for the board, for the community to hear. One of the things that we will do is have a parent and staff engagement opportunity, which will be in June, to hear from them. We state our intentions, we listen to people, we let them react, we hear about their hopes and fears, because we care about that. It's also a requirement of part of the withdrawal process that's enumerated in pages of requirements. The second thing that we are intending to do is to provide a written notice to engage in a special education program review by a third party, also a requirement of the withdrawal process. Those are the two pieces that we would like to move forward with right away. So we have a plan for some feedback in the month of June, along with our attorney drafting a letter to True North Board President and Superintendent requesting that we go through this program evaluation, which is some of the early steps of the withdrawal process. So I bring it up both as a reminder and a little bit of foreshadowing as to what we're going to be doing next.
Does anyone have any questions?
I don't have a question, but a comment. Even if we were as healthy from a revenue perspective as our neighboring districts were, I would still support this withdrawal 100%, because we do have a duty to the taxpayer to spend money wisely, and spending $500,000 plus accelerating is not on services we are not getting, is not doing that. So I just wanted to remind everyone of that. I think that's important. And also, I mean, we don't know where that number's going to end up.
No.
You know?
Well, looking at the last 2 or 3 years, it's gone up exponentially.
Yeah, that should be it is a concern. So I support 100%, and those next steps sound great. Let's keep at it.
I mean, I also want to reiterate that regardless of the money that's being spent, we're doing what's best for our students in the district. And getting to this point where we're able to say we have no students at True North, we feel that it's best that our students are staying home with us. And we're welcome to show everyone at True North how they can do it also. I think it's time to start the process.
That's right, and we plan to do so.
Just a comment, has anybody withdrawn from the cooperative since inception?
Yes.
And when was the last time?
2006, I believe.
Right.
the impossible.
We're going to give it a try. That's all I have. Thank you.
All right, great. All right, next we'll move to number 5, press policy 5:100.
This policy was pulled from the press issue 114 that you approved earlier, just to allow time to incorporate feedback from legal counsel. And so what you have here is the rewritten policy to include that feedback, streamlined.
And will we vote on that next month?
Yes.
Yeah. Any questions on the press policy? All right, next we have our second audience comments. Kathy, do we have any comments? All right, we'll move along to our reports. We have the number 1 FOIA report, the number 2 True North Board meeting report, the number 3 construction change order report, number 4 referendum expense report, the number 5 monthly budget report, the number 6 current financial projections, number 7 24-25 professional development plans, linked right to our strategic plan already. Number 8, the following meeting agenda. Any questions or comments on the reports? And then we'll move to other business. I just want to ask the board, I'm going to be asking you your availability for June meeting. We may be changing it based on the ability of everyone to make it. So look out for an email on your availability, and if so, we'll let the community know ahead of time if we're able to change or not change. And if anybody else, anything else? If not, I'd say the meeting's adjourned.